online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Hello and welcome to today's Battlemech review. Today we're going to be looking at the Quickdraw, which is a mech that some people don't like as much as they should, and some people like more than they probably should as well. I've had bad experiences with this thing. When they come into the shop, more often than not, they're in a very desolate state. And it's not because that they've been repaired and rebuilt a million times. This is a mech that's been in production for quite some time now and was, well, decently popular. The problem is they generally get beat up quite a bit because they're meant to be at the front line, but they're not set up to be fighting at the front line as much as they should. So it's a tiny little bit odd. We're going to look at the different setups for it. There's some that are very interesting and some that are pretty good. And there's some that, well, the majority of them, I should say, have some basic structural issues. So let's get into it. The Quickdraw is a bit of an odd duck, and we had recently a big Solaris match with 4 of them, where they were matched with 4 other 60-tonner mech in pretty much the same category. The overall results were rather poor. Even using terrain to their advantage, they were outgunned, they had a tendency to overeat, and they were rather under-armored compared to, well, not even the mechs that they were facing, because other 60-tonners are usually not that well armored, but it felt like they had issues with how much armor they had. Everyone in the office here had the same opinion. Stop putting rear-facing weapons on a mech that can already flip its arm backwards, and we would probably have seen a better machine, better results in those fights. So where does the Quickdraw come from? Well, it comes as an idea to try to replace the Rifleman. The problem is the Rifleman has been a staple in military units throughout the inner sphere and the periphery and amongst the clans since just about forever. It did start out as a 50-ton medium mech. Most people don't remember that, but it did balloon in size up to 60 tons. And while it has many misgivings, I mean, it is poorly armored, it has a terrible heat sinking most of the time, it is not that quick, it remains one of the best anti-air platform available on bipedal platforms. And I mean, you do get a decent amount of firepower on it if you know what you're doing. Over the years, there were many mechs that were actually meant to replace the Rifleman. You had things like the Jaeger mech, you had things like the Galahad, which is actually pretty good at it. And most of them are looked at in various levels of fame or infamy. Technicron Engineering on Savannah in the Free Worlds League wanted to get in that old replacing the Rifleman game in the late 2770s. With the American Civil War dying down and Kerensky fighting on Terra, the prime market for the new mech would probably no longer be the SLDF at large, but more specific house militaries. Technicron figured that a more simple and reliable design would probably be better than an high-tech one, and it would have a better chance of sticking around even if things got damaged or destroyed around the inner sphere. So that is what they set out to do, and they were quite smart for doing so. First and foremost, though, I will tell Technicron one little thing. If you want to replace the Rifleman, put an advanced radome on it so you can use it as an AA gun. People don't buy the Rifleman because it's a good brawler or because it's a good medium hunter or a long-range support platform. No, they buy it because it's an AA gun. Technicron did work really hard in order to be able to match the Rifleman's arm flipping capability, even though they had full actuators on the arms, which is pretty cool, but yeah, I mean, it's not going to save it in the long run. They also have super special awesome actuators in the leg, letting it walk and move on more difficult terrain than normal, but even that was a little bit over the top because those actuators were a little bit over-engineered, so people could easily damage them if they got close by. In the days of regular infantry, the only thing you really had to worry about was jump infantry swarming you fairly commonly. But for battle armors, becoming more common since the clan invasion, weakened actuator or actuators that were easy to exploit were not a good idea anymore. The 2779 QKD 4G Quickdraw is the model that was used for most of the Succession War, started mostly in the Free Worlds League military, but spreading to just about everyone as time goes on. It uses the incredibly common and reliable VLAR 300 as an engine, giving you a top speed of about 86 kilometers per hour, and you get 5 tons of jump jet equipment, letting you jump 150 meters. You get 13 heat sinks, which is seen as good enough on the Quickdraw, but you will be running quite hot quite easily if you're not careful with what you're shooting, and especially if you're jumping around. 8 tons of standard plate protect a standard chassis, which is barely enough, but it's more than what you would have on, let's say, a Rifleman. The Quickdraw, though, doesn't have a main gun per se. It has an array of weapons that it's going to use to engage at long and closer range. The right torso mounts the only real long-range weapon on the design, a 10 rack of LRM from Delta Darts, very common piece of equipment, fed by a ton of reload. It's reliable, it works fairly well, it's going to give you that medium range bracket. It's going to be fairly good. Once things get closer, each arm carries an Omicron 4000 medium laser, which can be flipped backward. Like I said, the arms are actually quite good at that. And your belly button has 4 tubes of regular SRMs. Now, for something that is a bit silly, you get 2 rear-mounted medium lasers on a mech that can already flip its arms backwards. So if you're being chased by something, well, you are already able to flip your arms and shoot at it. Basically, it allows you to shoot forwards, backwards at the same time, which is not a thing that's going to happen very often. And those are not weapons meant to take out things like infantry or anything like that. It's really a bunch of anti-armor weapons. It is really an odd choice, and I honestly believe that flipping those forward is the right thing to do. I dug in through some different things here, and I figured out that Battle Lightning is once again pretty useful when looking at the history of some Battlemechs. There was a leak in 2778 that was talking about an upcoming Quicksilver Battlemech from Technicron. Each arm would have a big, large laser, and the side torsos would have a medium laser, a setup far more reminiscent of your Rifleman's. This one would have no missiles whatsoever, and the armor was a little bit thicker because it was made up of ferrofibrous. Not sure why they didn't go with that particular setup. It probably came down to the fact that they really wanted to keep the mech as simple as possible, and possibly an issue with sourcing those large lasers, because it was a problem at the time. You had to figure out who was going to sell you those large lasers that you were going to stick in the arms. So who knows what really happened there. The first major variant of the Quickdraw was the 2847 QKD4H. People were not happy with most of the firepower being on backwards, so the technicians flipped the 2 medium lasers that were in the back forward. To compensate for some reason, generally what they did was flip the SRM to be facing backwards, which is still very silly for me. You will see a good chunk of those models, like the one we have here, that have all the weapons facing forward. This is a pretty nasty brawler, and I've seen some with the jump jets taken off to beef up the armor, different things being done during the Succession War to make this thing a more of a beast. While there were resupply issues during the Succession War, this meant that the QKD-5A, the Alpha, was meant to alleviate that kind of problem. Your 10 rack of LRM is stripped off completely, and you add an additional 2 forward-facing medium lasers for a bit of extra firepower. You get 4 extra heat sinks as well in order to help with the increased heat load. It's not quite enough, but it's better than nothing. You will see some of those like the one we have here, which puts all the weapons facing forward, meaning that you are going to be able to have one massive alpha strike at close range. There was also a periphery kit for the Quickdraw, the QKD-5P, which takes the LRM rack off, as we said before, and you replace it with a hatchet in the right arm. The medium laser that is on the right arm is also moved to the left arm, so you have everything that is shooting backwards, shooting forward, and all your lasers being able to be shot even if you swing the hatchet. You still get an extra 2 tons of plates on top of all of this to make it even tougher. This is a brute. Basically, it was used mainly in rather ugly fights in the periphery. It never got popular in the inner sphere itself, but, it could be good in some situation, and especially in arenas. New versions of the Quickdraw did become available as soon as the Starlink technology was rediscovered, and really production started in 3049 through Technicron's facilities. This new kit used ferrofibrous plates and case in order to increase the survivability of the design, which is a very good thing. To compensate for the old EAT issues, the engine is now equipped with double EAT sinks, but it has a bit too many, if you ask me. The weapons remain more or less the same, except for the SRM, which is now a one-shot variant, which is absolutely useless, in order to use the weight differential for the case equipment. A periphery for this, which is fairly common, was to take off a double EAT sink and replace the one-shot SRM4 with a regular SRM4 and a half a ton of armor. This was the smarter thing to do, at least in my opinion. D5M had an evolution during the Jihad era when the factories at Technicron were not being besieged or blown up by the Jihadis. The medium lasers are upgraded to ER versions, at least the front ones. I've seen the back ones remain standard medium lasers every once in a while, while the old one-shot SRM4 is replaced with a Guardian ECM suite, a targeting computer for the laser, which is pretty small and very useful in this situation, and Artemis 4 is added to the LRM-10. The whole thing is still grossly oversynced most of the time, even by removing one of the double EAT sinks, but when you've got ER medium lasers, it does run odder in general. It's not a terrible setup, and I think replacing the one-shot SRM4 for Guardian equipment is really a good thing, especially when you're dealing with a lot of C3 computers. Lucian Armor Works did get a license to build the Quickdraw, and they put quite a few down during the early clan invasion era. The QKD-5K is a bit over the top, carrying 6 medium lasers, 4 facing forwards and 2 facing backwards, along with 17 double EAT sinks. If you're looking for something that is really oversynced, that would be it. And it's even crazier because you have to think that the Draconis Combine had a problem with supplying double EAT sinks, and they had a whole lot of Jenners and Panthers, far more common mech, that didn't have any double EAT sinks at the time. Like the earlier 5A model, you do keep that 4 rack of SRM, so you are a wonderful brawler, but there are some issues with that model once you start thinking about it. One thing that the Lucian Armor Works people in the Draconis Combine did have quite a bit of was ferrofibrous, so they did use that as well on that particular design, which makes it quite a bit tougher. Later on, when C3 computers became popular, you did get the QKD-C, which removes one of the rear-facing laser and puts in a C3 slave unit. They probably should have taken out an EAT sink instead, but that's what they did. They also have a QKD-5K2, which does what D4H does and put all the lasers facing forward, while you have an SRM4 shooting backwards. It's rather silly, but it's going to work once again as a brawler. You can move things around a little bit and get a C3 computer in. C3 computers and medium lasers really go together really well, a little bit like peanut butter and jelly. Down the line, we did get the 8K Quickdraw as well, which is when LAW realized that they should probably make a cavalry brawler rather than one thing that was a weird eclectic mix of different things or a pure brawler. The armor is upgraded to ferrofibrous and you get an extra half ton of it, which is pretty good, and the body is now made of endo steel, allowing you to save a little bit of weight. You keep 12 double EAT sinks, which is more than enough for what you're going to be carrying. You get 4 ER medium lasers, all pointing forward, which is a rather smart ear. And your missile launcher, you keep only one of them, is now a very big 30 rack of medium range missiles fed by 2 tons of ammo. And maybe some people would stick one of those Apollo guidance on it and move something around. Apollo is pretty good and makes the MRM very accurate compared to what they normally are. It is up to the individual pilot, well, not really, more is technician crew, and what parts they're able to source. Another weird one out there is the Poormans Omni mech, also known as the Quickdraw 8X and 8P, which were prototypes for future handheld weapons Battlemech, which have gotten more popular lately and better equipped in a way. All sorts of fancy technologies are used on these. However, you start with a torso-mounted cockpit. You've got a compact gyro. You've got an end-mounted turret. It is a lot of weird gear, not all of which are going to be useful or used effectively in the future. They did stick a PPC in the end turret in order to shoot backward because that's the most important thing when using a quick draw, is being able to shoot people that are behind you for some reason. Honestly, you will not be seeing a whole lot of those bad boys around, and if you see one, it'll probably be in a test bay or in a museum. The QKD-9M is another bit one of the odd ducks, but this one is far more common because this is a production model rather than a test bed. It is also a lot less survivable than most versions of the Quick Draw because it uses a 300 XL engine, which is a little bit risky. The skeleton is made of endo steel, and you've got 10.5 tons of light ferrofibrous plates, so you are well protected in terms of armor, but you know, the XL engine is a bit of a liability. Things are different though, because now each of the arms mount a large laser, and I've seen somewhat ER large lasers as well, but this will make it run crazy hot. And this is guided by targeting computers, so it's going to be decently accurate. You're going to have a nice mid-range punch in the 360-degree angles because your arms can flip backwards, so that works fairly well. The torso launcher is now a 15 rack of LRM as well, with 3 tons of reload and case 2 protection, which means that at least if it goes, your XL engine has a tendency of not going at the same time, but it's still a whole lot of ammo on that particular mech. It's a weird setup for a quick draw. It doesn't behave like a regular quick draw, but you'll be able to use it as a decent mid-range brawler. Nowadays, Technicron is one of the most advanced company in the inner sphere when it comes to producing clan-graded internals, namely double heat sinks and endo steel, because they've got a mill able to make it in orbit, and they've got the compounds and the process in order to make the clan double heat sinks. Their newest QKD-9G uses 10 ton of inner sphere graded ferrofibrous, because they don't have the technology to build that, on a clan graded endo steel chassis. The engine is now a light 300 instead of a standard, so it's a little bit more risky, but not as bad as that previous XL experiment. The arms now feature inner sphere graded ER medium lasers, while the rear is protected by regular medium lasers, all that tied to a targeting computer, meaning that you're going to be fairly accurate. I have seen quite a few people flip all of those lasers forward and replace the 2 rear-facing one with ER medium lasers, but that's not a factory kit. For missiles, what you get is a pair of 4 tubes of Clan Streak SRM and a Clan Streak 6 SRM. So you get a whole lot of short-range missile that get a decent amount of range, because that's what Clan Streak missiles do. And all of those are manufactured in the Reborn Free Worlds League, so they don't even need to import it from anybody else. This is a decent enough setup. I haven't fought against it very often or add any videos of it being used to fight people because it's a little bit too new, but it's a decent enough machine on paper. Apparently, the Clan Protectorate also commissioned Technicron in order to make them a 2C version of the Quick Draw, which would be 55 ton. I've got the specs of it from reliable sources, but I'm not 100% sure that's going to be the end result. You get 10 tons of Clan Ferrofibrous, which is better protected than most regular Quick Draw, and Technicron uses their internal endo steel mill in order to make the body. For weapons, you get 4 Clan ER medium lasers tied to a targeting computer, meaning that you're going to have a very good primary direct fire weaponry, and it's going to be accurate enough to be a threat. Your belly button launcher is still a Streak 4 tube of SRM, while the right torso packs a large 9 tube of ATM. I'm not quite sure how the ammo is going to be set up in there, or if that even going to reach production. But you get to see that, 55 tonners are often just as good, if not better, than a 60-ton mech, just because of some little quirks and little variants. As soon as you've got jump jets on a 60-ton mechs, the 55-ton version of the exact same thing would probably be superior. The Quick Draw suffers from many little issues. The first one, in my opinion, is that it would probably be better served as a member of the 275 Mafia rather than one of the Vlar Warriors. Looking past this, you see that it suffers a bit of the issues because of the firepower being flipped between forward and backwards, which is really kind of dumb in a mech of that category. It also has a fairly thin skin, which is compensated by an increase in mobility, but the Shadowhawk, Griffin, and Wolverine will probably be able to outfight you, especially the decent ones that have more or large lasers and medium lasers than the basic PPCs and AC5s. Honestly, I'm never sure where I would slot a Quickdraw in a formation, but as a cavalry mech, it is probably going to work. You just have to be a little bit careful having it around. So I thank you very much for listening to me for so long. I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.